So it's important with any performance to experiment with what different controllers are active, especially the super knob though. The super knob can do very subtle things and it can do very radical things. It's a macro control source that multiple parameters can be assigned to move in different ways. They can move while one gets bigger, the other one can get smaller. While one goes this way, it can go that way. There's all these different what we call motions that can be programmed to the super knob. So in the case of the CFX Concert Grand, I have it down all the way right now, and listen. There's very little reverb at all, and it feels like you're right close to the piano. So I'll tell you what the super knob does in here. It's simulating proximity effect. So it's not just the reverb that changes, it's also changing things like the reflection, so it's changing where you're at in the room. It's also changing EQ. I talked to a friend of mine about this when I was explaining how proximity effect works. And when I'm close to him and I'm talking to him, you don't hear a lot of the room because I'm right close to him. You hear the resonance in my voice. And then what I did was I moved about 30 feet away from him inside of a ballroom and I said, now what does my voice sound like? You hear more of the room, you hear more of the reflections of the reverb in the room, but you also don't hear as much of the resonance in my voice because the low and low mid frequencies dissipate in the room. So what we've done with Montage is simulate that by moving that single knob. And if you look in the screen as I move, you can also look over at the knobs as you move it, and you'll see things are moving in different directions simultaneously. So what does that sound like? That's with the knob all the way down. As I turn it up, I'll turn it up maybe to about there. So not only did the reverb change, you can hear a little bit of the frequency being cut because you're moving further away from the piano. Move it up a little bit more. Now you're definitely further away from the piano. You hear the fact that the reverb is definitely increasing, but also the EQ is changing. If I turn it all the way up, we're clear in the back of the auditorium. It is such a cool thing that I can simulate that feeling when I'm playing, and it changes how I play it. It may be appropriate to turn it all the way up for a certain type of ballad, but if I'm playing a jazz gig where I don't want so much of the room, I want a very focused piano sound, I might turn that all the way down. So that's one way the super knob can be used. This is in a musical kind of way for the CFX Concert. It's relevant to a piano sound. So it's important to point these things out as you play through. Take some time, play through the performances, move the knob and see what's happening with it. Listen to what's happening. Amongst the product guys at Yamaha, we like to say that Montage is great for snorkelers and scuba divers. And what we mean by that is most people, including me actually, are snorkelers. You want to do things very quickly. I want to find sounds, I want to organize sounds, I want to, play the instrument. And then there's the scuba diving. Scuba diving is when you drop down and you do a lot of deep editing. And Montage definitely does not disappoint. It's a very deep instrument as well. The basic things that you want to do to play and perform those type of things are easy to do on Montage. They made this interface so much more streamlined. But when you want to go deep, you can go deep. So I'm going to do a very, very slight scuba dive to show you how the super knob has been programmed for each of those parts. So all I'm going to do here, I'm going to hit the edit button first. And in this screen, I'm at the common. I'm looking at the entire performance. As I select parts, I'm going to select parts over with the buttons on the right at the top where it says Part Select. So I hit Part Select. Now I've already gotten to the place where I want to be, but it's under Part Settings, and then Control is what I want to look at, and it's Control Assign. Now there's a little button that's next to this part. It says Edit Part 1 Common. And when I select the Auto Select button, any controller I move will update to what I'm looking at. So now I'm looking at the mod wheel, and there's actually 3 different parameters that have been assigned there. But what I want to show you is what's been assigned to the super knob. That's part of the assignable knobs. In the assign light that's right next to the super knob that's illuminated, I know that that's on right now. So as I move the assignable knob, it updates, and the first assignable knob, number 1, on part 1 has been assigned to one of the EQs, and it changes with the movement of the super knob. Another EQ has been set to assignable 2 as I move that one. Now I'll move to assignable 3, still another EQ. So these three for that single part are simultaneously moving the EQ. That's part of that proximity effect. It's cutting and boosting things as I move further away from the instrument. So if I go to assignable 4, another EQ. Assignable 5, another EQ. So EQ figures very deeply into the movement of the super knob. Oh, but now I move number 6, that's assigned to cutoff frequency. So brightness, darkness. You notice as you move further away, the piano might sound a little darker than it is when you're really close. It sounds a little brighter. So that's moving the filter. Reverb send, well clearly you're going to want that, so that's as you move away, right? And then variation send, the variation effect is also something that's moved. So one part, there are 8 parameters assigned to a single part when the super knob moves on one part. If I go to a second part, the same thing. If I move the knob, it shows these are the same parameters because each of the parts of the piano are moving as you do this proximity effect feeling. Cutoff frequency, reverb send, variation send, and so on. So that is a pretty cool thing. That's something that's really never been done to the extent that Montage does it. This whole motion control thing is deep, and it's kind of hard sometimes to get your head around, but when you realize that it's a macro control source that moves multiple parameters simultaneously in different ways, it starts to become a lot more apparent what this is and how powerful it truly is. As I said before, that's a brief scuba dive to show you what's happening with the super knob. If you want to know more about super knob programming and get really deep, go to YamahaSynth.com. There's a whole bunch of articles that Bad Mister wrote about super knob programming, and there's going to be some more videos in the series that show exactly how to get to the super knob and program things. But that at least gives you a taste of the power of the super knob on a subtle thing like the piano, but we're going to show some other things later on where it's pretty radical. So let's move on and check out some other performances.